Dear students, welcome to video lecture. I am Shankara Reddy, Assistant Professor of English, JFGC, KGF. In this session, we are going to start the poem The Escape, prescribed for 3rd semester BSc students of Bangalore North University. This is the first session on the poem The Escape. Let us start. The contents of the poem. Lesson overview or objectives, session outcomes, brainstorming, testing the previous knowledge about the poem, introduction to the poet, introducing the poem, multiple choice questions, session summary, source and references. So in this session we are going to introduce the poem and introduce the poet. Overview or objectives. The overview of the poem or the objectives of the learning a poem. Learning the poem. The objective of the lesson are to enable the students to explain the poem prescribed, identify the themes of the poem, what are the main themes or what are the sub-themes in the poem, analyze its form and structure, in what form it is written, or does a poem have any form, or is it written in free verse? Explain the poetic devices used in the poem. What poetic devices are used? Develop aesthetic sense among the learners and appreciate the beauty of the poem. Comes at the end of the poem, at the end of the sessions on poem, the students will be able to explain, analyze, critically estimate the poem. Brainstorming. So, brainstorming will actually make you understand some of the key terms used in the poem or the ideas which are related to the poem. Anger is one of the key terms used in the poem. Anger is a temporary madness. So if we get angry, we talk loudly and then we become harsh. Do you agree with this statement? Yes, it is a temporary madness. We lose control of our tongue or ourselves. How does hatred begin and how should it end? So hatred begins when we dislike a person, and that dislikeness leads to angriness, then angriness leads to hatredness or animosity. So how should it end? Maybe if we are expecting a positive end, it should end in a peaceful manner, or one should come to consensus or understanding. It is a blunder that wars have taken place for trivial reasons in the past. Yes, we have seen in many occasions for small reasons, trivial, very small reasons which have no meanings. For them, the wars have taken place in the past. Could they have been stopped in future by resorting to saner ways of understanding? Yes, they could have been stopped if people were wise to think why they are fighting, uh, what will lead fighting. Translation is a challenge in literature. Share your views on this poem. So the poem that we are going to learn or to start with is a translation from Sindhi language to English. So it is a challenging task to translate a poem from regional language to English, and this is a translation. Uh, the poem is a translation, and it is a very challenging to learn the previous knowledge about the poem. Have you been angry on somebody? What made you to be angry? So we tend to become angry for things which we don't like. So what made you to be angry? Mm, that's what things that we don't like will make us angry, or something which are odd. Did you hate anyone? If so, why? In one or the other occasions, we would have hated somebody in our life. So, why means obviously reason is we would not have liked or we would have disliked. Did you come to terms with the person or do you still hate that person? Maybe most of us, in most of the occasions, would have come terms with the person if we are positive. If we are negative, we would not have. We would not have tried to come terms, or we would not have tried to, you know, to to be friends again and start the relationship new. Do you think being positive can help you to overcome your anger? Yes, if we are positive in our understanding and if we are positive uh, with whatever others talk, or if somebody had passed the buck, if we receive it positively and n- not tend to react, so we can somehow overcome. mm, I mean, anger and then breaking the relationship. Students, you compare your responses with your peer learners. Introduction to the poet Narayan Sham. Narayan Sham, 1922 to 1989 is the period. Was born on July 1922 at a small village, Kahi Kasim of Taluka, Nasharo Feroz of Nawab Shah district of Sindh. Sindh district is presently in Pakistan. During the partition in 1947, he was working as teacher of Persian or Farsi language at his birthplace. Narayan Sham completed his BA in Persian from Mumbai University. After partition, his family shifted to India. In the beginning, he was lover of the critics, but later his language became so easy to understand. So he was lover of the critics because his language was not mature. Later on, he was able to answer back to the critics, so he became the lover of critics. He became an exemplary Sindhi poet who pioneered Sindhi poetry and popularized it. So he was one of the important poets of Sindhi language who had pioneered it, and later on he popularized the Sindhi poetry. He introduced Western forms as well as classical forms like Doha, Ghazal, Bait, and Way in his poetry. From 1953 to 1988, he wrote 11 collections of poetry, including Varia Poland, which have been appreciated by the reading public. He was awarded the Sahitya Academy Award in 1970. This poem is translated from Sindhi by Param Abchandni. In the poem, The Escape. The poem is about anger and hatred. As we have understood in our brainstorming statements, so the poem is about anger and hatred. People cultivate hating each other for trivial issues. So for very small issues, which will have any use, people start hating. How actually the hatredness starts? Initially, dislike towards a person causes angry. Then anger leads to animosity. So animosity with a person can only be stopped by being positive in our approach. If we are positive in our approach and if we don't react for the words of others, even if they tend to criticize us, we can somehow overcome or stop hating or having animosity with a person. The poem The Escape is a special tribute to the poetic talent which subtly explains the futility and needlessness of enmity and hatred. So the poem is a tribute to poetic talent, which subtly means very, minutely or very aptly explains uh, the futility, I mean uselessness and the needlessness, I mean unnecessity of cultivating enmity or hatred. Let us discuss some of the MCQs, multiple choice questions set on introducing the poem and introducing the poet. First question, the poem The Escape was originally written in and translated to. So it was written in which language and translated to which language? Written, I mean options, we have four options given here: Hindi and Sindhi, English and Hindi, Sindhi and English, Farsi language and Sindhi. Option C is the correct answer, that is Sindhi and English. It was originally written in Sindhi and translated to English. Second question, who translated the poem into English from Sindhi? You have four options given: Shah Sahib, Narayan Sham, Param Abchandani, Kamla Goklani. Option C is the correct answer, Param Abhichandani. Summary. Let us recap whatever we have learnt. Narayan Sham, a pioneer of Sindhi poetry, introduced all classical forms of poetry, Doha, Ghazal, Bait, way in his poems. He wrote 11 collections of poetry and won Sahitya Academy Award in 1970. This poem, originally written in Sindhi and translated to English. The poem deals with anger and animosity and certainly expresses the futility of them. Futility of them means uselessness of having anger and enmity with a person. And references. These are the source and references on the poem. Thank you.